Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good night. I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that wherever you are is doing good for you. It is me, it's Paul Carpenter, and this is On the Road, in the Waves, and on the other side. Today, I bring to you episode 70. I haven't done this in a very long time because I haven't been able to find anybody who was interesting enough. I don't know if that's true. Anybody who would be willing enough. But man, oh man, oh man, oh man, do I have one of the most just dynamic, amazing human beings that I've met in a very long time. His name is Shane Howell, and wow, I'm just going to bring him on so he can start to tell his story, and we can do this. I'm so excited to have him. Ty, welcome to On the Road, in the Waves, on the other side. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's good to be here. You got a good energy. I'm excited for this conversation.
Man, so I was doing this at one point. I was trying to do an episode every single day, and some of my podcasts would end up being like 3 hours long, sometimes even 4. And I've had all kinds of interesting people, which is great. I've had rabbis and the guy who created the whole PUA thing, like the actual creator, not the guy who wrote a book about it. So I've had all kinds of people, all kinds of things on here. But Ty, please, if you would not mind, tell us who you are, what you're about, and where you came from, and how you came to be who you are today. And because that's like where we start, and then from there we can veer off into anything and everything you want.
So, first thing to say is we're shaped by adversity. You're shaped by pain. Am I still here?
Yeah, what I do is I switch.
Oh, hey, okay, cool. Okay, cool.
I'm producing. Let's
keep. I don't know if I lost you. Yeah. So I spent most of my life battling my childhood demons. So former foster youth, adopted. Birthed by a 13-year-old girl, raised for my first 4 years. So a lot of deeply embedded, interwoven, limiting beliefs, false beliefs, traumas that exhibited through addiction, low self-worth behavior. And so the best way I like to say it is basically 0 to 18. You are, if you've read like the 4 agreements, you're basically embedded with all these, a child doesn't have the comprehensive aptitudes to effectively translate their experiences as they actually are. And so 18 on, which really started to exhibit at 12, is basically undoing all that, discovering who you really are, discovering what your interests really are, discovering what the heck you want to do with your life. What is your purpose? And so, because you're broken away from those, external influences and, environments that you didn't choose. You're forced to be in those environments around those people. You're forced into experiences. You don't have very many choices. And so incarceration, 19 to 28, only free for 11 and a half months total. And that was exhibition of addiction. And that addiction was, rooted in my childhood traumas. And yeah, 4 agreements. This right here, guys, this book will literally change your life. And my favorite principle out of all of it, out of the four agreements, is don't take things personally. Mm-hmm. And that right there, because everybody's internal is externalized. So when say your dad beats you, that's an externalization. It has nothing to do with you, And so when you start to understand these negative experiences that you've experienced that have shaped you and, created different traumas, created different, emotional responses, bad habits, limiting beliefs, low self-worth, it helps you relabel and re-identify, how you have already internalized those things. And so that's kind of been my journey in a nutshell right there. Discovering who I am, discovering why, the best way to learn about the world, the best way to change is to understand human behavior. The more you learn about how humans function, how we innately function, we're all the same. We're not exceptions to these rules. We're not exceptions to any of this. We're all different, but we are biologically wired, and then obviously your neurological wiring from ages 1 to 4, to have specific outputs. And so once you understand, then you can relabel, you can reprogram, you can recondition, you can change your environments, you can make different decisions. When you know why you do something, you can pattern disrupt those thinking thought processes, etc. And so basically, how do I say this? The difficulty of life, the pains you experience only last as long as you ignore or remain uneducated about those, root, how do you say, driving forces of, behaviors, thought processes, limiting beliefs, things that drive low self-worth. Why do people become addicts?
Right.
As soon as you start to understand those things, you can dive right into the roots. And so that's been my journey, man. It's a never-ending journey because when you solve one problem, you get new problems.
Yeah.
I got through addiction. I'm like, hey, I got over this huge mountain, and then it's like you jump into entrepreneurship, and you're like, oh wow, that was nothing.
That was yep.
That was nothing. I got these whole new mountains now. And so so 4 Agreements, go read it. It goes over how, like, as a child, you embody external beliefs. Your dad, for example, your mom or dad said you're stupid, or that teacher says you can't do something. All these different things, and you absorb it, and it becomes a part of your identity. And if you're not able to, comprehend that, that's how a child behaves, they become products of their environment, then you're going to carry those on for the rest of your life. And you're going to suffer for it. You're going to go into cycles of repetitive, pain. And so 4 Agreements, great book that will really help. That was a huge driving force in being able to identify a lot of those, hindrances in my development, achieving my goals, actually living for who I am, being me. Like, how much of your behavior is actually you versus someone else? It's going to scare you. A lot of your behavior is actually for somebody else. It's just like, so that's my journey. That's my journey in a nutshell.
No, I have a pretty hard question. Because I know a lot about you, right? I'm literally on your page. I think everything you post, I'm right behind you. Like, click, and I talk and I say something about it. So this is that kind of a heavy question. You spent some time in jail and in prison, of all things, right? And it was heavy. And at one point, you even had to do solitary confinement. So my question for you is, because there's so many people who go through what you have gone through, and they don't go anywhere near the expansion you're at. So I want to know, if you don't mind, you don't have to answer this in any way, shape, or form, but I just, it's something in my head that I want to know. In that space of being all by yourself and being in this condemned location, right? Because that's what it was, right? You're condemned. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You're stuck. Was there something that happened within that moments, or in those moments of being just all of the prison time, I guess, but more so those moments that you said to yourself, enough is enough? Or did it happen afterwards?
So just to clarify on that too, when I was in my, so I only did 12 days of like pure solitary confinement. We came out 45 minutes every 72 hours. They literally chain you like a dog. They walk you to the shower. They lock you in. They walk you back to go get your clothes, and they walk you to this little like 16-foot by 10-foot cage where you can, be out of your cell so you get a total of 45 minutes every 72 hours. And they keep thousands of people back there. Like, this is a growing practice. It screws your mind. Yeah. But the years I did, so the year of 23-hour-day lockdown, I did have a bunkie. And then the second year, it was 21-hour-day lockdown. I also had a bunkie. So I wasn't quite solitary, okay. But I would argue that there's obviously a difference. But at the same time too, like, how do I say this? When you have no power outside of that cell, okay, you literally, like, if you want, it's just the simplicity of getting toilet paper. Like, there are guards who won't get you toilet paper just to be dicks, So the 23-hour day, like, literally racing thoughts, overthinking, ADHD. So you can just imagine how that goes. Go lock yourself in a bathroom for 23 hours a day and do that for a whole year. And let me know where your mind is at after that. But this is where perspective, and this is I would say that was the the best thing that ever happened to me was that 1 year in 23-hour-day lockdown, because it forced me, I had no choice. It forced me to wield my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first 90 days, I literally just laid on my bunk and stared at the wall all day, every day. I was like, crap, this is it. Like it was a admission of defeat. And so one of my brain markers and my memories that anytime I'm going through something hard, I always go back to, and it's the moment I was staring out my little window, my cell, watching the two people that came out for an hour. And I'm like, I've lost. Like, this is my life. I can't overcome this. You know, I have been incarcerated for being homeless before that. And like, if you're just impacted, getting housing is very hard. I haven't been able to get housing since 2009. And so like, that's why I left the country, because I got tired of being bullied through these political these politics and these legislations.
Right.
And so I literally looked out there and I admitted defeat. And it was about literally like 90 days in, I just clicked in my mind and I'm like, this is what they want. They want me to give up. They want me to admit defeat. They want me to identify as this. 77% of people that step foot out of a prison will be back within 5 years, 44% within 1 year. So it's a very well fine-tuned engine, and it's psychological warfare. That's why they put you in those environments. Right. It's punitive psychological warfare. It rewires you, and it, you know, manipulates that identity. It keeps your world really small. So when you go into a big world, you don't see a big world. You just see this.
Right.
And so you end up getting caught. And then obviously, you know, 14,500 is the average income of somebody that gets released from prison. Could you survive off $14,000?
No, nobody can. Nobody can.
No.
And then on top of that, you end up in groups of people who are also in the same situation, and then before you know it, boom, you're right back into, well, you were with that person. What do you mean? Where else do you want me to be? I'm homeless. I'm on the street, or I'm here, or I'm whatever. And that's the kind of people that are on the. Dude, I get it.
Well, it's sociological, because if the human brain is wired to survive, that's why you work against yourself a lot of the times. So if my needs aren't being met, I'm not able to get housing, I'm not able to get stable, I'm not able to get a good job. My brain, when my needs aren't met, is going to go back to the old people, places, and things as a means of survival.
Yep.
And so, but like, just to finish up the answer really quick, that's where I basically named. So Patrick Bet-David wrote a book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. Mm-hmm. And since 2016, so he wrote it in like 2022. Since 2016, that has been my number one driving force. Wow. And so like, anytime the fuel tank is low, it's got a little spite of NOS, that little NOS of spite. And I'm like, it's what they want. They want me to give up. They want me to lose. They want me to become that freaking statistic. Like, that's their goal. That's why the systems are built the way they are. And so for me, what has gotten me through that, and that's where I was like, okay, I'm not going to let the system beat me. I am not going to become that statistic that they work so hard to force me to become. And so that's where I was like, hey, Uncle Sam, you know, if you understand the history of the justice system, it was slavery. Then 13th Amendment came out, and they have that little anecdote, you know, unless you commit a crime.
Right at the bottom of it. Yep.
Yeah. And then what happened after that is they started convict leasing, and that's when racial profiling started.
Yep.
So they basically freed all the slaves, but then they would just lock them up for being black, and then they would rent them out to businesses and put them right back where they were before. But this time they're making the money for it, and the businesses are paying them.
Yep.
Well, about 1950, that got abolished. And so that's right within a decade after that is when the war on drugs started.
Yep.
And so, and when you think about this too, is if you have a problem, but you don't tend to the root cause, you don't have an environment. Most important part about all this is an environment that cultivates change and transformation. If I give you all the best financial literacy information, but then I force you to stay with, you know, people who don't have that, it's going to be almost impossible for you to actually act on it, because our human innate nature does not allow us. If there's 5, you'll be the 6th.
Yep.
So that's an important premise of it.
What you're saying is absolutely dead on. You know, I talk about this a lot. I've been homeless for I can't even mention the amount of years in my life. And the one thing that I've seen out of it is that it seems it's a revolving door. Once you're in that door, they want you to mess up again. They want you to screw up again. They're begging for it. And it becomes a system of financial wants from how much can we make off of each person every day? Like I think it's like $200 something a day, but the actual amount of money that the person in jail receives or in prison receives is like nothing, like maybe $5, $10 of actual money that's spent. And the rest is all done through bureaucracy. This guy gets the money, that guy gets the money, or it's even, prisons for money. Like the kind that they're literally just businesses to incarcerate people. And they want that to keep going. So, yeah, man. And I can't in any way compare, the amount of time you spent, but I was in a jail in Volusia County. And because I was not on my meds, they put me in solitary confinement by myself and took a shower in a cage. And I lost my shit. I was literally trying to get as much toilet paper as I could and soap. And I was using the soap and the toilet paper to like mold like little figurines and stuff. And I mean, anything that I could do to just kind of stay out, you know what I mean? Like not be in, so Ty, blessings to you as a human being in general for who you are today to where you could have been or what you could have been or where you could have gone, all the things that happened. So let's kind of move forward from there. And I don't know how many years it's been since you've been out, but can you give me a small kind of trajectory of how you went from where you were to where you are today? You're in Vietnam, you're living in a 4-bedroom apartment. You have a great, what I would consider a pretty good life, in my opinion. You're working out every day. You're cooking for yourself every day. And you've been traveling. I even saw you, I think you went to the Philippines or something recently. So how did that transition go? And what happened to go from where you are now to where you are today? Like, and then you can get into the business that you're doing and AI, and we can go into those whole things if you'd like.
Yeah. So when I stepped foot out of prison, I just knew I didn't want to come back. I didn't know where it was going to go. I had literally begged for termination because parole's not built for success. That's why more people fail than not. It's, you got non-criminal stuff that will bring you back in. You don't have an address, they lock you up. You could be working, doing all these things right, have a car, but you don't have stable housing. Every other box is checked, they'll still lock you up. And so I got terminated. So that was the most important part. If you have a loved one.
So when you say terminated, what does that mean? Sorry to cut you off.
So I did 3.5 years for a $1,000 theft, and part of that agreement was a termination. And so I think part of the termination too is they didn't give me the 16 months credit for time served. So I had to start from day one when I got sentenced.
Wow.
And so that was the most important part of it, because if I was on parole, I would not be here. Because if you make a mistake,
termination means that they cut you out of the system. You're gone. You don't have parole and all these other things. Because if you did have parole, you wouldn't be able to leave the States.
I wouldn't have gone to college. I went to the Ohio State University. I wouldn't have even been able to go there. I had to go meet my birth mom. Like, that's when the healing started. I went and met my birth mom. That wouldn't have been possible while on parole. They don't allow you to do stuff like that.
Sure.
I mean, they do in very small cases. They have a process, but it's not a very, loving process. So termination was step one. That's what opened up the ability for me to get into college. That's what opened up the opportunity for me to go meet my birth mom. When I first got out, I was making like $12 an hour, barely getting by. Did that for like 6 months. And so a lot of things happened in between then, but when everything changed is when I met my birth mom. So I ended up hooked on drugs again, IV drug user. My car had already gotten repoed once. I got it out, and it was about to be repoed again. My phone got shut off. I had no service. I'm like, crap, I already know myself. If I don't do something drastic right now, I'm going to be back in prison. And so that's where the pain of going backwards is stronger than anything that's preventing you from going forward. And so I upped and left in the middle of the night, and I went to go meet my birth mom. So about 60 days out of prison, my birth mom messaged me on Facebook, because I had messaged her before my 3.5 year sentence.
Whoa.
I had actually messaged her because I found her. I said, hey, did you give up a kid, Tyler Shane, da 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 da, are you my birth mom? And it's funny because she didn't get the message till after I got out of prison. And then she responded to it. I still remember that day. I smoked so much weed, I had an anxiety attack. But that's why I'm a proponent of weed, because if you smoke weed, the worst you're going to do is just curl up under your covers and not get out. But if you have tolerance, that doesn't happen. But it's a better option than going and smoking meth, or going smoking crack, or doing all these other different drugs or whatever. And so that started the reconnection of my birth mom. And so when I hit that low point, and I'd already been talking to her a little bit, and I'd already figured out a way to make money. So these little crowdsourcing apps, you can go to stores, take pictures of things, and they'll pay you money.
Sure.
And so that's what I use. So what I was using to fuel my addiction, I used to get out of my addiction.
Wow.
And so that's what's really funny whenever I say the phrase "God turns all bad for good," it's like that's one of those things. So what I learned in addiction, to get drugs, to have money, to unsuccessfully pay for my car, but it worked for a little bit, is the same thing that got me out. And so I upped and left, and I had $13 to my name. I overdrafted my card, put gas in my car, and I just left. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I had $13, and I spent $5 of it on McDonald's, so I only had $8. But I had a full tank of gas, and I just started driving, and I hopped Walmart to Walmart to Walmart, because I didn't have data on my phone, but Walmarts have Wi-Fi, so I was able to connect and do these crowdsourcing things, and I would get paid $8 to $14 per Walmart, and I used that to get food, to get gas, and I just hopped. I mean, day 2, I ran out of gas in Wyoming, and it was snowing. I still remember that day. I'll never forget that day. And finally, when the apps paid me, I got gas, and I kept going. I mean, I got. I fell off the road. I got stuck in a ditch. It was snowing. It was quite a journey. But
some point, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but in some way, I find that is what I call a God challenge. It was God challenging you to see if you actually wanted to reach your mother, if you actually wanted to change your life. And it was all these bang, 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 these walls that most people would have just been like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go back. I don't know. I'll do something else. You know what I mean? So it's so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. It's so beautiful.
Well, and that'll come in and again too when I got accepted by the Ohio State University. But so during the so I just did that. I even stopped in Denver. My dad was working in Denver at the time, so I stopped and I met him on my journey over, and so that was cool too. So he got to see me as I was trying to pull myself out of the drug-induced lifestyle that I had been stuck in.
Was your real father?
My adopted dad. My real he's a creep and he committed suicide. He's dead.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, my birth mom was 13. He was 31.
Wait, he was 31 when he did this to your mother?
Yeah, she's only 13. Yeah, it was her stepdad. And that's why I have a message for women on self-worth, because the reason that happened is because her mother had such low self-worth that allowing the victimization of her daughter didn't mean as much, preventing it didn't mean as much as having the security of a man. And so that's kind of it's kind of part of my message as well for women. Your level of self-worth is directly correlated to the experiences of your children. You will put them in
because I'm totally in. You're in a ditch.
Oh yeah. So I go cross country. Day 5, 2 of my friends sent me some money, and so one sent me 20, one sent me 50. I got my phone turned back on. I had been seeing the Ohio State University everywhere, so it's really funny. I left just to get sober, and then I ended up going to meet college admission. So I meet my birth mom day 7. I get over to Kentucky, and then literally 24 hours later, I'm going to the Ohio State University. I drove up to Ohio. I met with admissions. And so 8 days after leaving, or 9 days after leaving Utah to go meet my birth mom, I'm already talking to college admissions. And so I started that whole process. I got accepted, and then I got, suspended because I had a criminal. This is what you talked about, how bad do you want it? And I got suspended from an application for being a felon. And so I had to write a whole bunch of essays. I had to write a whole bunch of papers. I didn't get accepted officially until 3 weeks before the semester started. So like I had to call them. Like I called them probably at least 10 times. Like, hey, have you gone through my thing yet? Because like I cried when I got that admission letter. Because I'm like, oh wow, because this is how my mind processed it. It doesn't matter what I do over the next 4 years. If I can just do this one thing, it doesn't matter how many times I fall. It doesn't matter how many mistakes I make. If I can just get to the end point on this one thing, then I can do something with my life. I can get somewhere that I've never been before. And that pushed me because when I started college, I was living in a homeless shelter, waiting for knee surgery, and I was smoking crack. So I lived in that homeless shelter for 2.5 months before I relapsed. But like how much time do you spend with crackheads till you start smoking crack? So that's you become products of your environment. So that's the most important thing. Like your environment is everything. And so every day, even when I was smoking crack, I would go, it was during COVID, so everything was digital, it was online. I would crutch about a half a mile away to a church. So churches are a big part of my story. I would go to this church, connect to Wi-Fi, and I would do my classes. I got a 3.3 GPA smoking crack. So just for everybody, like if you want something bad enough, I mean, if you just do the work, I mean, that right there is half the battle.
Wow.
Wow. But then 2/3 into the semester, I got out of the homeless shelter, and I've been sober since. I mean, I don't consider a little bit of social drinking. I don't consider weed. When I think of sobriety, for me, it's like methamphetamine, fentanyl, heroin, crack, like all that kind of stuff. So I've now been over 4 years free from all hard drugs. And so that right there, yeah. And so that started a whole journey with college, ended up moving back to Utah, transferring to University of Utah. I refused to get the COVID shot, so I had to get an exemption. And I almost dropped out of college then because of that. Because I'm like, I don't care about your stupid degree. I'm not getting that stupid shot. And so got exempt, thank God. And I continued studying. So I started molecular genetics at the Ohio State University. The reason I chose molecular genetics is because I learned about CRISPR-Cas9. So we're now genetic gods. A lot of people don't know this, but we can modify the humans. We can modify anything on the genetic level, A to Z. We can splice it, dice it, add, cut, remove, resequence. We can do everything now, and it's and we do it naturally. That's the coolest part about it. So Jennifer Doudna is the one who discovered that. So I'm like, oh, hey, so if we're predisposed to addiction and there are genetic markers that are attributed to addictive tendencies, that means that there's a genetic solution to it. Mm-hmm. And so I learned it was the hardest year of my life. Okay, I'm not meant to be a scientist. I'm more the guy that gives the scientists ideas. That's who I am. I do the macro thinking, they do the micro execution. And I realized you want to be the investor or the founder. You don't want to be the scientist because the scientist doesn't actually have control. The scientist doesn't get to choose who the teams are. The scientists don't get to choose the directions. They just do what they're told.
Right.
And I'm like, and this is way too hard. You don't make enough money and you have no control. This is not the right direction.
Right.
So then when I transferred to University of Utah, I switched to sociology. So I'm like, okay, well, now I need to understand how people think. So if I can understand how to influence and I understand more about, the group dynamics and the dynamics within the group dynamics, now I can understand how to influence people. Now I can understand how to move people. Now I can, understand more the behavioral aspect and element of anything to do with humans. That was the best decision I ever made. Everybody needs to go study sociology.
100%.
It is the tangible study of the metaphysical and energetic transferences and dynamics of humans. That's the best way to put it. It's basically because we can't actually measure the metaphysical. Sociology is the right under here.
Right.
It's wild.
I have one of the people who's watching, they said, "Is there a book?" She said this earlier, but Candy comes in and she's like, "You need to write a book. Is there a book on your life?" Because man, I thought I knew something about you. Wow, sir. Wow. Okay, I have so many questions. There's so many things I want to bring up. Well,
listen, all glory to God. Like I'm just gonna put this out there. All glory to God. It's literally like, how do I say this? The most pivotal realization that I've had is, how do I say this? nothing I'd done was done alone. All I did was move my legs. It's just like they say this, like the reason that imperfect action is better than waiting for perfect action, which becomes inaction, is because the best way to put it is God can steer a moving car. So even if you're going right when you should go left, you have to be moving to be able to get redirected to the left.
Boom, boom.
And so that's kind of the premise of all that is I took actions and doors were opened, miracles happened, people came into my life. You know, I had a spiritual mentor who got me right back onto the path. And once you accept God, once you accept Christ, like your perception of everything absolutely transforms. And I've seen people.
Sorry, go ahead.
What? Go.
No, I have so many things. I have so many things.
Yeah. Well, like, because I've seen people I've seen universe, I've seen Allah, and I've seen God, all the same outcomes. Okay. People who are suffering, people who are literally broken. I have seen, you know, and I should throw Christ, you know, Christ, God, Allah, Buddha, all the things and universe. I've seen, except Buddha. I haven't really known people around Buddha, but I mean, I'm going to assume it's the same.
Yeah.
But same outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, same outcomes. Their lives transform. They take things to all sorts of different crazy places. Opportunities open up for them. And so it's a matter of belief more than anything, and how you channel it is up to you. That's why I don't like look at Muslims and I say like, you're going to hell. You need to worship Christ. You need to put all of it aside. I'm like, hey, that's what you choose. I mean, the world's a better place. You know, there's extremists in every set of belief, but like, it's just more important to have that belief, have that way to channel, you know, understand what prayer looks like to you, the power of prayer. You know, what did God do before he created? He spoke. You know, so understanding these different principles, different concepts. So the Bible is so powerful because it's basically a guide for how life works. You know, the story of Jesus. You know, everything he teaches from forgiveness. Like forgiveness is so important. It's been a huge part. You know, that's been a huge part of me breaking to next levels is forgiveness. Like I never thought I would see the day that lack of forgiveness, and especially the things that you don't even know you need to forgive people for because it's just so like hidden in the crevices of your mind, past experiences. You have to forgive to unlock those next levels in life. And that's why a lot of people get stuck because they're holding on to those resentments. They're holding on to that negative energy. And that's why the story of Christ is so powerful, because if you seek to embody Christ, and I'm not pushing anything on people, this is what works for me.
Got it.
If I strive to embody Christ, I cannot lose. Okay. It's going to make life harder because now I'm facing the demons. I'm facing the inefficiencies. But it's like nothing good in life comes easy.
Right.
And the only thing that's holding us back in life is ourselves. And so until you conquer yourself, you can't take control of your life. And you're going to be victim to these different beliefs and these different, you know, identities that you have embedded in your mind that in a lot of cases are not true. And so that childhood, just like they say, like, if you have relationship problems, it's your inner child coming to the surface.
Yep.
And so if you can tend to all those different roots, your relationships are going to be better. Your vision in life, your clarity in life, your morals, your ethics, all that stuff is going to be better. And so, yeah.
So here we go. More. I have so many things to say, so many things to add. Okay. So I was going back a bit to when I was talking about the homelessness bit. Anytime that you're trying to get even just out of homelessness, not even just out of the situation that you were in, but they make it a staircase of you have to do this before you can get this, before you can get this, before you can get this. And it's like for anybody who's in a broken state of being, even that first step is almost impossible. So again, I have to just, first of all, before I even move forward, thank you so much for your time and your energy. I know that you keep it very, you know, to yourself. And so thank you for all that you're doing right now and for what you're saying. Even Candy, I already said this, but she said it, and she said, you know, it's inspirational. Thank you both for sharing. Candy, I'm not sharing nothing. It's all Ty. It's his story and it's amazing. Okay. When did the whole concept of Jesus come into your life? And then at what point did you get to your non-usage of hard drugs? I mean, granted, smoking and whatever, and pot. For me, believe it or not, Ty, pot has been the downfall of my existence. I'm literally like a crackhead when I'm smoking pot. Like I will literally use my last $20. I will go and buy it, and I will smoke 4 grams a day and drink 4 coffees. I'm joking, dude. I'm not, dude. It's bad, dude. It's bad for me. I feel like I have no control and no discipline in my life whatsoever in that respect. So it's like totally destroyed me. But I just recently had a gentleman in my life who was kind of like a sponsor for me. And he said, I was like, oh, but come on, man, I'm only just a pot smoker. And he's like, look, bro, I want you to get serious with yourself about addiction and the fact that you're an addict. Like, you just have to admit to it. He goes, because I know if I were to go get one shot right now, I would be in a hotel room banging rocks and having sex with a midget. And that story, it's just, I'll never forget that line, it's just so powerful. Yet at the same time, it's kind of comedic, but it's like so real. And so it really is. So, when did that happen? Like, I know you got baptized just recently in life, I believe, or something like that. But when did the whole idea of getting into religion come back to you? And when did the idea of stop using and maybe you went through a period of not using at all to get clear and clear headed. And then you're like, okay, I'm clear headed. I'm doing my thing. I know I'm okay. And I have control and I have some discipline. So maybe it's okay for me now. For you, obviously, you can do it. I'm proud of you. You've gained weight. You're looking great. You're kicking ass. You're making, I don't know what kind of money per month now. You're signing people left and right. So yeah, go there for me.
So ever since I left that homeless shelter, and when I was going to OSU, that was the last time.
Wow.
And I used, so like my trick in college was smoking weed because I have ADHD. So people are like, how did you end up getting, semester after semester after semester after semester of good grades? I smoked weed. That was my secret. That is literally because it's Adderall or weed. That was kind of like the thing. Now I made the decision, okay, harm reduction. Okay, so what's good for you now doesn't mean it's gonna be good for you later. When you can strategize and kind of systematize your evolution, your transcending, your transformation. So like now I don't smoke weed, but if I were to like go to Thailand and be like, hey, I'm gonna go smoke, I'm gonna go smoke this weekend, I can do that. So moderation type of a deal, but I've made the decision where it's like, okay, I don't need to rely on this. I need to, if I'm smoking weed for ADHD, I now need to get to the root cause. Okay. So like just today, I started with an ADHD time management coach, like that's how you get to the root cause. Okay. So when you take a pill and you take these things, you're not actually getting to the root causes. I'm not saying that there aren't pills that work and help, but everything has a time and a place. Okay. It's got a season. Right. Got a season. And so I used weed for a huge season. I used it for a long time. When I met my birth mom, the old me without weed would have gone and done meth because it was a very emotional time. But instead I used weed. And because I used weed, I didn't lose my job. I didn't go, to the needle. I didn't go do all this different stuff. And so, so since I left the homeless shelter, that was the last time I was smoking crack, living with crackheads. I'll tell you this, the nicest crackheads are in the homeless shelter. Maybe that's why they're in the homeless shelter, because they're too nice with their crack. So, yeah, I'm just telling you, like for 2.5 months, I got offered crack every day. I said no for 2.5 months, and I finally broke because I was like stressed out. Like maybe I was in pain from my knee. I don't know what it was, and I broke. But I stood strong for 2.5 months living with crackheads, man. So like even within that failure, there's a success in it, but there's also a lesson in it. You are the product of your environment. Doesn't matter how strong you think you are or how strong you are. At some point, your environment will penetrate. So you have to protect your energy and you have to protect your environment. That's why I'm so I'm so like particular about my environments now. I'm so particular about who I hang out with. I would choose isolation over a potential tainting of my circle and my environment. Like that's what my life has proven to me.
Yeah.
And then God. So God started in. So like when I left, I didn't see God. But I will tell you this: I've had Yeah. We'll just say I know that there is a heavenly mother of some sense from my experiences. I've had some very spiritual experiences where I felt the spirit, and it has been, yeah. So I know that there's an element. So that's my own little thing, even though there's no woman in the Bible, but family is a principle. But there's no, family up here because you need a woman to really complete that circle. So that doesn't really make sense. But, I was working at a temp agency. I was waiting for college to start. I'm living in Columbus, Ohio. And there was an electrician, John Paul. And so he used to be an addict. He was a very bad addict. He ended up getting into like a treatment center, but it was like a Bible-based treatment center. And then he ended up going and getting like, certified in some Bible studies and stuff. But he was now an electrician. And I got connected with him, and it was a really sweet gig. It was hard work, but it was a sweet gig for a temp agency. But that's why I say God will send like who you need. And so if I hadn't met John Paul, he hadn't started going over the Bible with me, I never would have got in that direction because I had done my research. Okay. I've gone in, I haven't like joined Scientology, but I've gone to their center. I've talked to them. I understand the different phases. The first one is detoxification. I went, Christian Science. I've seen women preach. I've literally been to 9+ different religions. I studied sociology of religion in college as well.
Wow.
And I still came out that Christ is the answer.
Wow.
So even though I went, I experienced, I'm telling you, like I've been to a lot of different churches.
No
And I also studied the history of these churches. That's why I say I follow Christ, not religion, because religion is a shell and it's also a controlling construct. It's like a social construct to control, but it's good. It still helps. But if I can just be like Christ, use the Bible as my blueprint for life, like my favorite verse right now, like my motto for life is Proverbs 13:22. A great man leaveth inheritance to his children's children.
Yep.
And so like that's like my motto in life. But like Proverbs, story of Christ, you can't go wrong with it. And that's what people get caught up on. They get caught up on it. And the reason the Bible is the greatest story on earth is because humans need stories. So it has to be in a story form. It doesn't matter if waters really grew up 100 feet and people walked through an ocean. It doesn't matter. It's things taken into stories because humans need stories to be able to connect and to understand. And so people are like, oh, this is, they get lost in the letters of what is being told, and they miss out on the principles. They miss out on the secrets to life that are literally laid out in front of them. And so I got baptized officially, so it's just a public declaration in November 19th of 2023. Okay. And it was just like a month after that I left the U.S. But I can tell you this, getting baptized is the best decision that I ever made. Yeah. And it was when I finally accepted, Christ is the answer. If we look at the justice system, if we were to add Christ into the solutions and the way that thing functioned, you would get 100 times better results. We wouldn't be focusing on punitive psychological warfare. We would be focusing on redemption. We would be focusing on education. We would be focusing on compassion and finding out why do you do the things you do instead of how can we exacerbate the existing conditions to ensure that you come back. 100%. How can we make it difficult? How can we make it difficult for you to get help? How can we make it difficult for you to get staples of stability? Because they use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then they attach political legislations to each level.
Every single one of them. Damn,
that's
dude.
Exactly.
So that is so true, brother.
That's their blueprint. That's their blueprint, man. Because self-actualization cannot be achieved. So the only way to, enslave a demographic, it's literally Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's their blueprint. Okay. So they've attached.
Let's move on.
Let's
move on because I'm okay. So at what point did you start this business? I just wanted to do the whole catch up, and we did a bunch of it, like 30 minutes of the whole story, which is intense because that's such a micro version of the actual life you've lived and everything you've been through. But wow, Ty, wow, kid. You are a phenom, kid. You are a phenom. I am so glad to have you. I'm so glad to call you a friend in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Now, how did you get into what you're doing today? And how did you get into jumping into the AI bit and the whole email? What did you, before you do that, what did you do prior? Because I know that I somehow or another, I introduced you to Daniel. And we could talk about that, and we could talk about how that happened to me and my own moments of clarity because of, and what I'm calling literal moments of like psychic awareness. I don't even know if that's what it is, but like full on, I was just having a sit down with him at this conversation. And for some weird reason, I was like, oh, you need to talk to this guy. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, look him up. And then he's like, oh, he's been trying to talk to me for a couple years. And I'm like, add him now and tell him I said hello. And so we'll get to that point. But so because I know you studied him before you got into what you're doing. That's why I bring that up. So what were the things that you tried to do that failed or didn't work out? Not that they're failures, but they didn't work out in the way that you wanted or the way that you're doing today, which is ba-bow. So if you wouldn't mind, go through that.
So, I mean, first it started, I was in college, GPT-3 came out, I wrote a whole essay with it, and I'm like, yeah, I need to change directions. This degree is going to be worthless, which I'm actually very accurate. You know, AI education is more important than a college degree now. So, like, it's crazy. So I dropped out 2 weeks after GPT-3 came out. I was doing funnel building. I was like ClickFunnels, high level, Google Business, SEO. That's kind of where it was. So I started with 10x marketing as well. So 10x marketing was one of my first crash courses. Actually, was because Grant Cardone said, when the economy is in turbulent and when we're in a turbulent economy, there's one thing people will always need, and that's marketing.
Yep.
And so I dropped out. I actually ended up in the homeless shelter because I failed so hard. I had a limiting belief about money. So like now, the most I've ever accepted at once in one payment is $15,000. Just in in February of 2024, I was homeless because I wouldn't accept. Oh no, it was in February of 2023. I was homeless because I wouldn't accept $850. And so like I didn't even value myself. And luckily, like she's a great friend, and she helped me have this breakthrough moment. I ended up homeless. I'm in the homeless shelter. I'm watching people smoke crack, wondering how I'm here. Like, how did I end up where I started? You know, I stayed sober, but like, how did I get here? And so I had to face that limiting belief about my value. You gotta understand, for years of my life, I only made 15 cents an hour. You know, when you're working a 9 to 5, you're making $12 an hour, $15 an hour, et cetera, et cetera. So like, you have this identity that you can't actually make more than that. So to think that all I had to do is write some articles and I get paid $850 didn't make sense to me. Because I'm thinking like, wow, that's like, you know, that's like 80 hours of work. How am I making that only, you know, in a few hours of work? And so I had to go through that journey right there. Luckily, a mentor of mine took me in. And so that was a whole thing. So I was only homeless shelter for 5 days. I'm telling you, like, God shows you out, man. Like, God shows you out. It's just so wild. And so the reason I ended up on cold email, because I'm kind of bouncing around. Sure. And the number one advice people told me is like, you need to be known for something. You have to stick with one thing. People need to know what to associate you with. So if they have a problem, they know who to go to. So you need to pick something. The reason I like cold email is because it's a psychological game. And it's almost like you shouldn't be doing it, but you can do it. And like, it's just like now, like we're always coming up with different tricks. We're coming up with different ways of like right now with my AI system, for example, like people don't even know it's AI. And like, even in that, I'm just like, you know, it's like they think they're having a conversation with a real person, but really it's just we've plugged in the right prompts, the right AI, the right processes, the right data to emulate what a human would say in a conversation. And so that's what it was. One of my, past clients, one of my case studies came to me. He's like, hey, I have this list. Like, what can we do with this? And I did some research. And I'm like, oh, okay, we can send cold emails. Okay, we need to get some emails. We need to do this. And so that's what I started with. And so I ended up, and that was the same time people were like, you need to find something to stick with it. You need to stop bouncing around from doing, funnels, SEO, website, Google Business. Like, that's just not scalable. And people, what you're doing today is different than last week. So like, I don't even think I should reach out to you for the problem. So I'm gonna reach out to someone else. So I dove into cold email. This was like kind of pre when AI really took off, when deliverability was much simpler. Like deliverability is like literally 10 times harder now. It's
Yep.
a lot harder, more difficult. It's a lot more saturated as well. And so that's kind of where that, and so that's like mid 2020, that's mid 2023.
So
And so
just 2 years ago, barely.
yeah,
Wow,
just barely 2 years ago.
Ty. Wow. So that's what, so about a year and a half, let's say 8 months ago, you decided, okay, I'm going to be the cold email guy. And I remember the first conversation you and I ever had, by the way, you said to me in a message, I believe, start telling your story, I think is what you said, or start telling. And it like was in my head, and I was like, what does that mean? What is he trying to say? And then I just watched you do the same thing. Like, that's what you do. It's really beautiful, Ty. You have a story, and you've told that story in the last, I don't know, 8 months that I've been following you, and I've been trying to contact you all the time and, be your friend. Look, I'm a weirdo in that sense. Because when I find people that I think are different, strange, weird, whatever, right? I attach myself to them. Like, so for instance, Josh Harris was one of these people. I watched a documentary called We Live in Public that was made by a beautiful documentary filmmaker. Her name is Andi Timonar. If you have not seen this documentary, I'll send it to you here in a bit. You have to watch it. It's about a guy who at 23, the internet's taking off. He creates a business almost the same thing as this ChatGPT thing that you did, where you're like, and every business that he would come to, he would give them a graph that was the exact copy of the first graph that he made of a company, and he would just show their business making lots of money, and that's and he made stupid amounts of money from this. He sells that, and then he opens up the first business called Pseudo. And Pseudo was the first internet television radio channel. We're talking 14.4, okay? And this guy has the Podfather, I forget his name, Adam something or other, the guy who first did podcasts. He was one of his radio DJ, like VJs, before MTV had VJs. And
oh wow,
he sells this company for $80-something million to Yahoo. And he exits out, and he wants to become a blue chip artist. So in the art world, blue chip is like you sell your pieces for a stupid amount of money. And he starts having like way before what's this company called now? It's this company where they have all these different art installations, and you pay like $40 or $50 to walk around. You went to one just recently of the Japanese artist, the one with all the mirrors and everything in the room. Like
yeah.
She's well known for that whole thing that she built, and the fish that are on the floor when you're walking. All of that's an amazing piece. Meow Wolf is the group of artists that have created this thing. So he was doing Meow Wolf in 1999, okay, before anybody was doing anything crazy like this. And so he rents out a warehouse. I don't want to tell you the whole story, but he rents out a whole warehouse. And it's right before Y2K. He has people from Andy Warhol's crew, everybody. He asks them to sign this document. Once you walk in, you can't come out until we all leave, or until something stops us from being. And on December 30th, like right at the end of the year, the NYPD came in and totally shut them down. So then him and the girl that he fell in love with during the whole thing, he is the first person to ever be on the internet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he had 76 cameras in this apartment.
Oh,
and
wow.
She leaves him 4 months in, and he's by himself, and he loses all of his money, and he ends up, I watch the movie, bro. Anyways, I get super like, oh my God, who is this guy? I must know him. 4 years. I searched for him. I was in Las Vegas street performing on Fremont Street, and I found out he was in Vegas. So I wrote him a message. I went to every place that was in this second part documentary that Andi did on her YouTube channel. And I went to every location that he was in that video and left a message and said, my name's Paul Carpenter. Get in touch with me. I want to meet you. So he finally goes, and he comes back to me and he goes, hey man, I just got your message. I see you're a magician. Will you teach me magic? And I was like, I'll be at your house in 2 minutes. And I literally went funk right to his house. Still a good friend of mine, still talk to him to this day. Something like, I believe you and I are going to be friends for life, dude, no matter what, like whether you like it or not. So wow, Ty. Okay. So so you just said something to me that makes me kind of click. You said email marketing is really hard now. Are you about to do a pivot?
So basically what I'm doing right now is I've got to get predictable recurring revenue in cold email, and then I can pivot.
Okay.
So I'm basically building up. So like in this process, because my ADHD and all my rabbit holes, I've become an AI expert. I understand all different facets. I understand the mindset. I understand how you take any problem, any current process, any current system, how you automate it and AIify it. And like, you don't need to know everything. You just need to go deep enough into all these different things. And then once you've hit different, like, how do I say this? Like different segments of it,
Yep.
like this compounds into understanding this. This compounds understanding this. And once you submerge yourself enough, like it all just makes sense.
Yep.
And so, and once you understand all the different facets of it, from like voice, image, text, video, like all these different, NAN, agents, relevance AI, and all these different, tools, softwares, systems that you can use. Like now I'm learning more about GitHub and how to like open source, self-host and all that stuff. Like once you hit all that, like you basically, like all that changes is the variables within each segment.
Yep.
And so like you've already got the how do I say this, the mindset, the perspective, the correct perception of problems and AI and systems and processes with AI. So getting to AI consulting, it's like, how do I continue to leverage my experience and my skills, maximize that? How do I maximize my leverage?
Right.
And so cold email is limited. And so, but at the same time too, is this like, if you're known for something and my actual greatest point of leverage is where I've already built reputation, case studies, processes,
right.
systems, like I just built a fully AI automated cold email engine that's literally shatters what people are doing who aren't using AI, who aren't automating it. It's literally beating them out.
Yeah.
So it's like, I got to work with what I have. I've got to build that up. And so my goal is by end of year, at the end of the year, make it into more like, mindset and AI consulting. Mm-hmm. While have already, because like if I sign 10 clients today, I can automate it all, Right, so like obviously there's the front end work, but I can just automate it all. I don't got to reply to anything. I don't got to check anything. Maybe just pay somebody, delegate it, say, hey, check on this stuff every 72 hours, make sure nothing's gone amiss type of a deal. But like, that's literally where we're at now. And so some people who are much further along kind of reined me in. They're like, listen, like your heart may be over here, but right now your money's right here. Yep. And so like follow your heart, but you got to be strategic and you got to be, intentional about how you go about it. So you give yourself the best probability of success. And then when you can take this and it's stable, it's predictable and scalable, you can feed that into this with a lot more predictability and scalability. Fair enough. Like, and you have to understand delegation. You have to understand these different, very like core mechanisms of growing a business. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I've got to master what's in front of me. And then those skills, those comprehensions will pass on to these other things. And these will be, exponentially easier than building the cold email business was, because the crash course of how to be an entrepreneur, the crash course on how to delegate has already been overcome. And so here's the last part, because I know you have to go. We only had about an hour to do this, and I think we got about another 10, 15 minutes to go before we let you go. So a couple things. Since you just got into GitHub, I want you to look up Agent Swarm. You will flip out with that. It's an amazing program created by this kid, MIT grad. And it literally creates agents. What ChatGPT is just put out, he created like a year and a half ago. It's been forked about 1,000 something times, and it's amazing. So that's one. These are the things I'm just gonna fast track to you because I know you'll get them. Are you using Vercel? Are you using Supabase? No, so I'm using
Okay.
Alestio.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you've heard of Alestio, so
Yep.
that's what I'm self-hosting. So
Hmm.
like I'm just going on to this new like how do you self-host something? How do you
Yep.
put it on the cloud?
Yep.
How do you own it instead of having to
Having somebody else.
use
Yep.
externals? Because then I can start to connect all these to NAN agents. And so
Yeah.
like
That's why I was saying I know that you just got into NAN like 2 weeks ago. Like I saw that you built out.
yeah,
I guess I could share with you my screen. I built out an N8N like just powerhouse for a company. All run through basically. It's just for their in-house, but it was like Telegram. Telegram gives them voice. You could talk to it voice or text, and then from there it would do anything you wanted for the inside. So get any email, do any reposting, blah blah blah. And I had to create. So I made the main like layout, and then from there I built out layouts underneath it so it wouldn't get overwhelmed. So it was layout, and then let's say I wanted to do Gmail, I then built a layout for just Gmail. So it would take the information. Oh, it went to here. Boom, goes to the new NAN layout, and that was just for the Gmail attachment. So get your all your emails, send out a new one, all of that, and it would do the same thing for research. It would do the same thing for calendar, and it did the same thing for one other thing. I'm losing it right now, but basically that's how I built out one NAN layout so that it wouldn't get overwhelmed, because that's what I saw was happening. Was it was just getting overwhelmed with its things. Like it wouldn't know where to go. And I was like, okay, well, how do I fix this? YouTube. And and I saw a
yeah,
guy who did that, and I was like, oh, that's genius. What a great idea, because you can still add your your API key, but you're just using the API key for this informational piece of this moment, and then it doesn't have to get overwhelmed with where am I going and how am I doing and all this other stuff. So that's cool. Another thing, dude, so great to talk to you. So great to talk to you and have you on, man. You have no idea how much I enjoyed this. You are a powerhouse, kid. You are a powerhouse, an absolute powerhouse of a being. Um, so much. Oh, I'm gonna write to you privately. I think I need your help with some email. And you know what? Let's go ahead. It's already that time. Give me who you are, where people can find you, what social media is, all of that stuff. And I'm going to give you the full screen so that you can talk to the people at home, and then I'll end it. You can go after that. Ty, blessings to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What an absolute banger of an episode. So thank you. And let me go and let you do your thing.
well, yeah, no, thank you for having me. Listen, just all glory to God. If you want to learn the lesson on humility, start learning how to not take credit for things. It'll be difficult. It goes against your innate human self, but the more that we wield it, the more we practice it, the more we embody it, the more powerful we can actually become. And so, Ty Dash Shane Howell. I mean, right here. So oh yeah, you can't see any of that. Yeah, so Ty-Shane.Howell. If you go to 10xcoldleads.com, that's the cold email stuff. But hit me up on social, LinkedIn. It's Ty-Shane space Howell, Howell. You'll usually see a colored yellow background with my little tattooed face. And so I just want to leave a message with everybody that I would say is, how do I say this? 70% of people, based on studies, die with regrets. So you're more likely to die with regrets than not. And so the choices that we make today, the risks that we take, are going to dictate what those potential last moments are. And we all feel like that day is far, far ahead of us. But in reality, the people that died today had absolutely no clue that they wouldn't be here tomorrow. Most people don't get they don't get a heads up. And that's kind of the story of life. And the older you get does not restrict possibilities. You always have limitless possibilities. KFC was like, founder was like 63 years old, something like that. A lot of people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they find success. So it's never too late. However, you don't know when you're going to die. You don't know when you're going to get that last opportunity. And so just my message with everyone is you literally have nothing to lose. 20 years after you die, nobody's going to remember you. Your children aren't even going to talk about you that much. You'll have impacted, you'll have supported, you'll have created, you've done all these things. But the reality is you're going to be forgotten. You'll be remembered for very brief moments, passing conversation at Christmas, etc. So you literally have nothing to lose. And if you live someone else's life, you'll never get to live your own life. And if you let the world create your life, it's going to take advantage of you at every possible turn. And so I just want to leave that message with everybody is today, now is all you have that's guaranteed. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. So whatever your dreams are, whatever your goals, ambitions are, take those first steps and you will be blown away at the opportunities that will come, because the laws of attraction are real, and intentions, the laws of intention are very real. And, principle of reciprocity, do good unto others, people do good unto you, karmatic principles and stuff, all that stuff is real. And so, don't, you think you have tomorrow, but it's not guaranteed. So
and I want to say one last thing. I want to say one last thing, because I just saw it when the screen went big. You're a plant daddy and they're not dead.
Oh yeah. No, I brought that one back to life. I've been struggling with this one, man. It goes and then it comes back to life and it goes. I got a tree outside. I have a beautiful flower outside. That's great. So I'm getting better at it. I've been a bad plant daddy, but I've gotten better. I've gotten better, man. It's a struggle, but it's good.
So good, dude. Once again, thank you so much for coming on, man. Have a beautiful night or day for you. And thank you so much for coming on, man. You have a great day, okay?
Hey, you too. God bless. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. See you later. Oh my God, folks. I've said it every single time I do one of these episodes, that when I do one of these episodes, you're going to get to see or feel or meet an amazing individual. But I'm literally drenched in sweat from that whole thing. I was going through so many amazing emotions and feelings and like thoughts and like whoa moments. Watch this again. Watch it 4 or 5 times, because he dropped so many gems, like so many amazing gems in this episode. Folks, thank you for watching. I always say this at the end. Please go out into the world, do something nice for somebody else. And if you can't do something nice for yourself, it does start with you. Number 2, don't get caught up in all the crazy stuff in this world, because if you do, then you end up a little like poopy. That's not good for you or me or anybody else. And number 3, if you would not mind, please like, share, subscribe, send this out to somebody who needs to see it. My friends, I love you all very much. And I will see you all, no matter what, on the other side.